reality is that the Conservative government's radical overhaul of Canada's immigration and refugee system is turning us into a less welcoming country. These changes limit the possibility of newcomers to reunite with their families and stifle attempts to build stronger communities. Canada was built by the hard work of newcomers from all over the world, and this continues to be the case. New waves of immigration are helping build thriving communities and a 21st century workforce. Unfortunately, instead of welcoming skilled immigrants and addressing Canada's long-term needs, the Conservative government is prioritising temporary work visas to help big business pay lower wages. This isn't how we built this country, and it won't be the way to build the economy of the future. The Conservatives have increased the number of temporary foreign workers by almost 200%, while allowing employers to pay them 15% less than a Canadian worker would earn. These workers come here alone. They aren't allowed to bring their families. After sending money back home, they themselves are forced to go back home. This does not build communities. One would think that if you were good enough to work in Canada, you'd be good enough to stay. Not under this Conservative government. Last week in question period, I highlighted a recent report that points to shocking negligence on the part of the federal government in protecting migrant workers. Too often they are subject to systemic abuse due to federal immigration laws and provincial labour standards. At the same time, this government has pressed the delete button on over 280,000 potential new Canadians in the skilled worker backlog. These are folks who have followed the rules and whose skills Canada's economy desperately needs. In the 2011 election, the member from Calgary South East cleverly quoted ethnic and cultural communities by learning and reciting greetings in a myriad of languages. He showed up to many of our functions and promised a kinder and gentler immigration policy. But after winning their coveted parliamentary majority, the Conservative message has been the same, no matter what language you speak. Newcomers have little value outside of being economic units who offer cheap, temporary labour. This is wrong. In addition to being my party's critic for immigration, I am also our spokesperson for multiculturalism. It's a responsibility I take very seriously. I am honoured to represent Newton North Delta, one of the most diverse ridings in the country. In addition to hard-working people who have called Canada home for many generations, we also are blessed to have newcomers from all over the world who make our community stronger. Immigrants from India, Pakistan, the Philippines, China, Asia, and all over Europe, just to name a few. All of them tell me their #1 priority is to be able to reunite with their families and build stronger communities. They came to Canada in hopes of a better future and under the promise that they could eventually bring their families. Unfortunately, this government has systematically dismantled the family reunification provisions of Canada's immigration system, including making it harder for spouses to become permanent residents. They have also stopped applications for parents and grandparents, preventing them from being reunited with their children and grandchildren. Many grandparents now pass away before they can come to Canada and hold their grandchildren in their arms for the first time. This is more than political for me, Mr. Speaker. It is also very personal. I am saddened by the direction this government is taking us. I was fortunate to come to this country, bring my family, and contribute to my community. But I wonder if my story is even possible under the Conservative changes. Another issue of great concern to the people in my riding and right across the country is the arbitrary rejection of visitor visas. The rejection rate is huge, and many in my riding have had their families prevented from attending weddings and, yes, even funerals. Many are given no reasons and have no chance to appeal these decisions. I only wish that this government would spend half as much time on making our visitor visa system fair as they do in bills like the one we are discussing today. I also want to address this bill in the larger context of the sweeping and mean-spirited changes this government has introduced to our refugee system, in particular changes to the interim federal health programme. Last spring, with much fanfare, this government announced that it would cut health coverage to vulnerable refugee claimants. Backbench MPs on the other side have even sent 10% mailings home declaring an end to gold-plated coverage for refugees. But the reality is far less pretty. The move effectively denies access to healthcare to many who are legitimate refugees and whose family has limited or no financial means. Canada was built on the idea that we all have a responsibility to take care of one another, especially the vulnerable. But the Conservative government is targeting this very basic Canadian value. Frankly, it's unconscionable to think that my colleagues across the floor would deny refugees the basic right of healthcare. But there you have it. They are playing politics with people's lives. The cuts to healthcare and the bill we are debating today aren't the only drastic changes this government are making to refugee policy. Last week, we learned that Fatima Tosavandan, an Iranian woman in Canada, is facing imminent deportation despite evidence proving she faces an adultery charges there that, under Sharia law, could result in her being stoned to death. Under the Conservatives' draconian refugee reform package, all refugee claimants are now banned from applying for a pre-removal risk assessment within a year of receiving a negative answer on their claim. But the assessment is a second chance to consider whether it is truly safe to send a rejected claimant like Fatima back. Mr. Speaker, while considering this legislation, I would urge all my colleagues to look at the bigger picture.